Hello everyone and welcome to the review of Wolfenstein. Which Wolfenstein? Well, not the original Wolfenstein 3D, but the one that's called just Wolfenstein, which came out in 2009. Newer gamers should probably be more familiar with Wolfenstein The New Order as well as The Old Order, and the most recently announced one at E3 2017, Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus. Of course, Wolfenstein is an old and storied video game franchise which, well, many people call it the granddaddy of first-person shooters. Well, this one is a remake of sorts. It came out in 2009, a period when everyone tried to rebrand their old franchises by making a new one, a new installment in that franchise without a number. Happened with Rambo, happened with many other things, and happened to Wolfenstein. But is it any good? Well, let's find out. Now, first things first. Much like my previous video, the review of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Wolfenstein 2009 is very much a product of its era. That's both good and bad. As I've said a few times by now already, Wolfenstein originally came out in 2009. It came out on the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 and Microsoft Windows. The developers were the talented people of Raven Software. Talented, I say talented because they were responsible for some very good games throughout the years. And so I was expecting a reasonable measure of quality from this game as well. I can't say I wasn't disappointed, but I wasn't blown away either. Much like with Return to Castle Wolfenstein, this is a game that has a lot of pros and a lot of cons. Let's get a bit more in depth into that. So, starting the game, you're greeted with the introductory cutscene, much like with Return. In this one, Special Agent William B.J. Blazkowicz steals a very interesting medallion from a general aboard a German ship. That medallion apparently has a few very special powers, which are gonna become very central to the plot as well as the entire gameplay of the game, this time as you move on. Wolfenstein is actually a sequel to Return to Castle Wolfenstein and a prequel to Wolfenstein The New Order, because the arch-nemesis you met in Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Wilhelmstrasse, Death's Head or Totenkopf in German, is the main antagonist in this one as well. First thing you notice after the introductory sequence is finished will be the graphics, which are very pretty indeed. The game is based on a modified Doom 3 engine, retroactively named by id Software id Tech 4. The game engine powered Doom 3, Quake 4, Enemy Territory, Quake Wars, as well as Prey, the original Prey, which came out around that time as well. Anyway, thanks to the engine, the graphics of the game are very smooth, really lightweight, especially in that time period if you played on Microsoft Windows, and lead to some very impressive visuals and effects. Now, as opposed to Return to Castle Wolfenstein, which took place in various locations around the globe which were occupied by the Nazis, Wolfenstein 2009 takes place entirely in the surrounding areas of a town called Eisenstadt. The Nazis are researching a technology called the Nachtsonne crystals, the Black Sun. You see, it would be considered heresy to have a Wolfenstein game without some connection to the occult and, I don't know, mystical, supernatural things. So, the gimmick in this one is the Black Sun crystals, or rather, their point of origin, the Black Sun dimension, a place devoid of life, where everything is bluish in hue, and populated by specters, you could say, and a Black Sun. In the game, you will be given a medallion which is powered by the Black Sun dimension, giving you various interesting powers. These powers are slow motion, a shield, and other things. You can also pass through certain walls when you go through the veil to the Black Sun dimension and such. It's nothing groundbreaking or particularly original, but it's still nice, and it looks wonderful. Now, first thing you'll notice when things start going haywire and you start killing people is the fact that the game is much improved in the shooting mechanics compared to Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Enemies now react realistically when you shoot them, and it's quite satisfying killing them. The inclusion of havoc physics and ragdolls make things quite more interesting indeed when the shooting starts. Now, as I said before, though, the game is pretty much a product of its era. That means that the game tries a lot to be like an RPG or a cinematic experience, which is both good and bad. Throughout the game, you'll be interacting with 3 different factions: the Black Market, the Kreisau Circle, which are, well, the guys who are trying to liberate Eisenstadt from Nazi Germany, and the Golden Dawn, who have strong ties to the occult and pretty much tell you what you need to know about this thing you're carrying, which is connected to the Black Sun dimension. Spoiler alert, rather unsurprisingly, the Golden Dawn ends up betraying you to the Nazis, which is not surprising considering the the organization's presence in my home country. In any case, the game is now divided into a main hub, which is Eisenstadt, and the surrounding areas, and various points of interest inside it. You go through the Eisenstadt hub, through the streets, through buildings and such, looking for little things like secret passages, treasures, and all that, as you do in Wolfenstein games, trying to get to entrances towards the actual action levels, you could say, missions. The game flows like this. Usually there are some important NPC from one of the 2 or 3 factions will have something to tell you or something to ask of you. You go, you talk to them, you learn some exposition, and then they give you a mission. Go there or do something. The places you'll be fighting are places like a castle, a cannery, a hospital, among other things. Level design is more in line with the era, which is to say that it's linear, much like Return to Castle Wolfenstein, but as opposed to Return to Castle Wolfenstein, it feels more like the game is funneling you towards your destination all the time. There's not the sense of scale or grandeur that the outdoor areas had in the first Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Well, except for the hub areas, which, well, are pretty large and expansive. But those are there just for you to go through and, just waste your time, essentially. Actually, this is a criticism that can be leveled to games not only of that era, but the games of today. There's too many games that are just wasting your time with needless, absolutely worthless bloat. Too much bloat in games. 1,000 collectibles, leveling mechanics, all that crap. You don't need this in a first-person shooter, but, well, it's the current year. Or rather, it was the current year in 2009, so you had to have them. In the sound department, the game is stellar, as was its predecessor. Weapons sound meaty, the voices of the German soldiers as well as the supporting characters are top-notch, and the music is really good and fitting. All in all, excellent work. Now that I mentioned them, the weapons in the game are pretty great, to be honest. You have the usual assortment of weapons, from conventional bullet spewers to more original and fantastical things. Also, all of them can be upgraded, which is both a blessing and a curse. It means that you are encouraged to look around the levels, because the treasure you can find in a given level, as well as the hub areas of the game, are converted into gold. With that gold, you can upgrade your already considerably powerful arsenal to even something more destructive, which is always good. Haha, more destruction equals more fun. And you want to have some fun. Of course, the review would be incomplete without mentioning the medallion and its powers in a little more depth. For example, I mentioned earlier that you can use it to slow down time for your enemies, or create a shield to block enemy projectiles against you. However, when you do that, you move to the Black Sun dimension. When you do that, you also move faster, and you can see things that aren't seen by normal means, and you can also interact with them. The medallion is generally used pretty well in the game. I would go as far as to say that it is the highlight of the entire game, indeed. Not only it allows you to solve puzzles and such, but it also gives you a whole slew of abilities to play around with, and quite honestly, makes battles all the more interesting. You can adapt to your own style. You can move faster using a jump to the Black Sun dimension. You can stop time for your enemies. You can blast them with some Nachtzone shockwaves. Everything is more interesting with this in play. So, in closing, you probably noticed that I'm less ambivalent with this game than I was with Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and that is because, well, after playing it, just if you play it for a little while, you'll understand. You don't expect greatness from this game. Right from the get-go, the movement speed is slower than it used to be, and the game puts you in the mood for one of those first-person shooters of that era. And yes, the shooting mechanics are much improved. The game is technically meatier and fuller than Return to Castle Wolfenstein was, but you can't shake that feeling that it's just hollow. It doesn't feel as exhilarating as Return to Castle Wolfenstein did. And this is mainly the reason why I can't wholeheartedly recommend it like I did with Return to Castle Wolfenstein. That game, despite its many shortcomings, was really a diamond in the rough. This game is mediocrity. It excels in some things, but it falls flat on the actual feel of the game. I can't explain it otherwise. Play out of 10. In any case, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Push that bell button as well. And I hope to see you next time. Till then, take care.